Wait, what are we doing?
3, 2, 1, action.
My name is Ben Chan. I drive an E46 M3.
My name is Wendy Liu and I drive a C8 Corvette.
My name is Soon Lee and I drive a 2010 Subaru Legacy GT and a 2004 Mazda Miata.
My name is Lamarcus Williams and I drive a 2015 Civic Si.
My name is Nate Rodriguez and I drive a C6 Corvette.
I used to live in the LA area and I was a web developer and database developer, and now I'm just a database developer. Hobbies include playing video games and driving in the canyons and driving at the track and taking care of my 2 kids.
I was born and raised pretty much in the LA area. I am currently a power plant engineer for the county of Los Angeles. So picture Homer Simpson, but with a few less donuts. My hobbies are, I used to play a lot of basketball, not so much anymore. It's mostly doing things with my kids, mountain biking, taking them to the park, hiking, and of course the car hobby, mostly driving the canyons. In fact, to the point where I started a group called SoCal Canyon Carvers to get people together that enjoy the same hobby, all kinds of different backgrounds and different cars, and we enjoy a lot of beautiful roads together.
From Birmingham, Alabama, I'm a logistics coordinator or quality assurance logistics coordinator, and my hobbies are drawing, Gran Turismo GT7, and her.
I am currently a doctor of acupuncture. My previous career was as a biochemist in a pharmaceutical company, and I decided to go the more natural route. As far as hobbies, I like snow sports. I like to do snowboarding. I like to watch sports, and other than that, I like to spend time with my 5-year-old and my wife.
I grew up in Alhambra, California, and I currently live in West Los Angeles. I work as a paralegal, and I specialize in intellectual property and patent litigation. Some of my hobbies include international traveling. I like multi-day trekking as well and climbing mountains. I also enjoy fire flow arts, such as fire hula hooping, fire whips, fans, and dragon staff. And I have a community in Los Angeles that does this with me. Some of my other hobbies includes motorsports, and I love racing this car at the tracks every other month or so.
Cars used to be just like point A to point B kind of things for me, but then I started to get into cars and really enjoyed driving them. My first car was a Toyota Camry, not very exciting. The second car was like a Corolla, not very exciting. Then after playing some video games like Test Drive Unlimited in particular, I started to enjoy driving a lot. And I figured, okay, I need to get like a real car. And I was going to get the BMW 135i, but on the order form they kind of messed up the color, where there was a Montego blue and Monaco blue. And then somehow in the final paperwork it changed colors. And then I decided to cancel the order. And then around the time I was also looking at the E46 M3s. They were around, I think at the time they were around like 20-25 grand. And I liked the way they looked. I test drove a couple that were local, and then I ended up buying one. So I got more into cars by going to some BMW meets. We would have like a weekly dinner, and we started to have like an annual festival. That's also when I first went onto the track to get my track experience. attack race by accident because I wanted to just do the HPDE, but then it's like a 2-day thing. You signed up for like 2 days, you get like a discount. And then, but the second day was, was actually do a qualifying and then an actual race. So that was a bit unusual.
Well, I was always a casual fan of cars, and I always wanted to get into it more, but I just didn't know where to look, who to follow, especially in my day where YouTube wasn't what it was today. I originally was into trucks. So I was into trucks. I had a Tacoma. I would get into off-roading and whatnot. My first car was actually, I have two first cars. My first car was a hand-me-down, which was a 1990 Volvo 540, which was nicknamed the Roachmobile because it had roaches, but it was the best party mobile. But my first real car, as far as my own as an adult, was a 1990 Integra. And why cars? It was a late hobby for me, and it was ironic because one day I was telling my wife that I don't have any hobbies because I had spent so much time doing school, setting up my practice, that I just didn't have time for hobbies. And then that week, somebody plowed into my 20-year-old car on the street, and I was forced to buy a new car. And that was sort of the beginning of my, becoming an enthusiast. And what I've come to find is that it's a great avenue for connection. Connecting to the machine, connecting to the road, connecting to other enthusiasts. So it's been a great thing for me to help me come out of my shell and connect with other people that I otherwise would never have done.
I got into cars when I was a little kid, mainly because my dad would bring me Hot Wheels home almost every day after work. So I started to really like cars and all kinds of different cars. My first car that I bought myself was a 1988 Firebird GTA. I used to love those cars, that body style, mostly because I grew up watching Knight Rider as a kid. So that Trans Am and Firebird was one of my dream cars. But to me, being into American cars, I always loved the Corvette. To me, that was the pinnacle of American sports cars. So as my career got going, fortunately enough, in my early 20s, I was able to buy myself my first Corvette, a C5, and now I have a C6.
Cars have been around my life, all my life. I've been pretty much into cars since day one, honestly. My family, they're all surrounded by cars. They're into the car industry, so it just naturally threw me into the car industry. My first car was a 2000 Acura Integra LS.
When I was younger, I've always wanted a Corvette, and I'm now finally able to obtain one, but it didn't start that way. My first car was a 1995 Honda Accord.
I haven't had to sacrifice too much. I guess you could say that I've stuck with the Toyotas for a decade or so before I got like a real driver's car. So that was the sacrifice of not enjoying the vehicle, just driving from point A to point B. Maybe what I should have done was bought like a used BMW or Mercedes back then and try to enjoy that.
So two things, right? The first is how to discern what information out there is correct. There's a lot of, conflicting information, and you just don't know what source to trust. That was a big thing, and finding the trustable sources was a big challenge. The next thing was, how much is this worth? And if you've never been a car enthusiast, it does cost money, and it's a little bit of a shock at first, but that was a thing to kind of have to overcome, is that mindset that this hobby does cost, and the willingness to spend that money and kind of make it worthwhile.
Right now, the main challenge that I have to face, it's not really money or anything, it's patience. Since COVID, there's a lot of parts that's been on hold. I have an entire build right now that I can't do anything with because waiting on parts.
Some of the challenges in the car culture is some ego and aggression from people, especially over the internets and the forums, when it comes to opinions of cars. But you overcome that with having a community and building connections with friends.
Some challenges I faced getting into this hobby early on when I was younger was just saving up money to do different mods, stuff that I wanted to do, and just learning. I didn't have back then all of the outlets of information that we do nowadays. I had to go buy instruction manuals, learn how to work on things. So those are some of the challenges. Now, later on in life, it's mostly time. You know, family is first thing, so that takes up a lot of time. I've been fortunate to have a good career, but time's the most precious thing, so just finding the time to do the things you want to do is the biggest challenge. But I'm fortunate enough to be able to have some time and go out and enjoy the hobby and drive and make friends while I'm at it.
One of the first mods had to be the short shifter kit, because the stock shifter just felt kind of loose and wobbly, not very precise. And I was also thinking about upgrading to with a supercharger. And for that, it kind of required doing like a catback exhaust. So I got some headers and different exhaust part one to put like the cap further back. Later on, I got like a supercharger. Had a lot of power, but then I had like cooling problems, and then I added like an aluminum radiator. And also at the track, I also noticed other problems, like the braking was kind of so-so, or it would have brake fade. So I upgraded the brakes, at least the front brakes at the time, and then added wider tires.
Well, I knew I wanted a Subaru. The WRX wasn't doing it for me, and I thought, you know, how cool would it be if there was a WRX light car, but for dads? And I remembered years ago that my coworker had one of these cars, and I said, hey, how cool would it be? I wonder if there's a newer version. Well, there wasn't, and in my search, this unicorn popped up, and when I contacted him, he hadn't even had any hits because it was a fairly unknown car. And so it was a perfect thing for me, where basically the internals are the same as a WRX, but it's, you know, more of like a dad-friendly car. So that's why I picked this. In terms of work, one of the things was when I first got it, I was insisted on trying to do a lot of the work myself, and trying to learn how to do it myself. So, so far, suspension with coilovers, obviously wheels. I've done some braces, you know, with strut tower braces. But I also started with little aesthetic things, right? Painting little things here and there with my grill, my hood scoop. A big project of mine was I got a JDM center console, which has AC ducts for the rear. So I had to completely gut the front underneath all the panels and add ducting so that I do have AC for my kid in the back.
So I walked to Honda, had no car, and I knew like I wasn't leaving without a car. Was looking for something sporty. I'm used to Acura, so this was a little different for me. And talked to the guys there in Tipton Honda in El Cajon, and they showed me this thing. And from that day, I fell in love. We're gonna start off with my wheels. I have NTO3 M's, Inkeys, wrapped around Yokohama tires, Avon Apex tires, roll cage, which you can see, Buddy Club, Sport Spec, no, my bad, P1 Racing Spec seat, Takata 3-inch harness, to dive into the engine. It's which is kind of weird, but it's a K24 Z2 block and a K20 Z3 head with TSX cams, and everything else is pretty stock. Intake, exhaust, full bolt-ons, NVIDIA Q300 for the exhaust, DC Sport headers. I'm sitting on Godspeed Monomax coilovers, 10K front, 14K rear, spring rate, and that's about it that I can name off the top of my head.
Crashed my C5, which was heavily modified. And I knew I was gonna get back into another Corvette. Now I always loved the lines of the C6. However, my next build, I wanted to keep it a bit more focused on driver mods, things that make you enjoy the car a bit more. With my C5, it was big horsepower, 900 to the tire. So I did the big horsepower thing. Now I wanted something that involved me more as a driver. So it had to be 6-speed manual transmission, specifically a TR6060 and an LS3 car. I wanted a bare bones car, no fancy interior, because I knew I was gonna mod it, I was gonna track it, I was gonna just beat the crap out of it. So I found this C6, it was a good deal, and I got going on the mods. Nothing crazy, too much yet, a lot of suspension stuff. It has custom valved Bilston shocks with custom Delrin bushings. It has the springs off of a C6 Z06. It has Rebesto's racing brakes, top of the line fluids that'll hold up to track duty and just a lot of abuse. Nankang tires, which have been awesome. I love those tires, they're great, highly recommend them. I got some basic aero mods, ACS composite front splitter that had ram air brake cooling, and I say had because I turned one of them into ram air for engine oil cooler. Just a lot of things to help it survive track duty, bigger radiator, not a ton of power, full headers, bolt on, and a tune. Puts down about 420 to the tire, which is still plenty to have a lot of fun on track and on the canyons. So it's just been a fun car. Has a Kirky aluminum seat, so a guy my size fits in it comfortably. So just a lot of little driver mods that make it a really fun car to drive, which was my focus on this build. And the power will come, but for now I'm still enjoying it.
Before having the C8, I owned a C7 for about 3 years, and I naturally progressed to having a C8 shortly after that. My current build is some of the aerodynamics I started with first, such as my C8R high wing spoiler, and I'm planning on doing a track alignment on my wheels, and more aerodynamics package with the side skirts and front splitters and canards. Aesthetically, on the interior, I've added carbon fiber trim, carbon fiber steering wheel, and I've also tinted my windows. In terms of mechanical, the car, I believe, is track ready.
Say I would describe car people as people that enjoy driving cars, but also there's another category of people that just like to know which car is what. There's some people that like to go to the car shows and they like to see the cars, they know what the cars are, but maybe they don't like driving. I would say I would fall into the category that enjoys driving. I myself don't like the car shows so much. I mean, I'd stick around for like an hour, but after that, it's like if they're not going on a drive, it's like, I gotta scratch that itch to drive.
I go back to this word connection, right? The people that truly find a connection, whether it's to each other, to the road, to their machines. But to me, what a true car person is one that wants to drive it. And whether it's to cruise, whether it's just down the coast, whether it's at the track, canyon runs, somebody that wants to make use of these performance cars as opposed to as they say, all show, no go, just for looks. To me, a true car person is all about the driving experience.
Car people, for me, I think they have a weird obsession and passion for the machine that they drive.
There's so many genres in the car community that kind of take you everywhere when it comes to cars, but I think all of them have one thing in common, which is car people are individuals that see a personality or a soul in a specific car. And it doesn't matter if it's a sports car or a lowrider or a truck or whatever it may be. They see that car has a personality, and they see it as a way to express their personality in that vehicle. And it becomes a part of them, and it just showcases what they're about. And so it's helped me appreciate the entire car community, even if sometimes there's certain styles you're not a big fan of. But at the end of the day, we're all doing it for the same reason. We love cars. It keeps us involved, and I think the biggest thing is if you're a car person, you get to meet other car people, and it doesn't matter what you drive, you're all enthusiasts, and it's just really easy to make friends.
The way I describe a car person is that there's so much diversity in car culture, ranging from JDMs to hot rods and classics and exotic cars. One thing that does bring us all together is just the passion and enthusiasm about cars. Car people are those who immediately brighten up and light up in their face when they discuss their cars.
My message to younger viewers who might be getting a Toyota is to say, try to get like a used, fun car, if possible. Maybe something reliable if you're still paying some money before you can modify them. And then, if you do start to modify them, I would say probably go like tires and suspension first, rather than power. Otherwise you have to deal with the overheating problems and not enough brakes.
Being that I got into this hobby after the age of 40, I would say to not be afraid. To not be afraid to tear into things in the car, to not be afraid to try to disassemble and reassemble, try to do your own work, and lastly, to not be afraid to go out, put yourself out there and try to meet new people, because that's one of the things I love most about me being in this hobby, is I stepped out of my comfort zone and went out to meets and met great groups of people that were really game changers for me and helped guiding me into the hobby. So, and also to not be afraid of actually going fast and going through canyons. So really it's to just try to eliminate fear associated with cars.
Make friends, make connections. The car scene is full of dope people. You never know where it's gonna lead you. That's it.
The message I have to the viewers, old and young, is whatever car you have right now, I think it looks great, and I also think you should track it.
My message to the current car community and the future, the younger generation that's just coming into it, would be don't stop and don't slow it down. We live in a society today where everybody's in front of a screen, whether it's a phone or a television or whatever it may be, and it's really easy to become a slave to that. And cars give you freedom to go out and drive, to be outdoors. They give you something to work on, or make you use your mind. So the next generation, don't forget what cars have done for us, where they've gotten us in terms of an individual's freedom, the ability to express yourself, and don't let it die. We live in a world where a lot of people don't even want cars around anymore, but as long as we keep it going, whether it's an electric car or one of these oldies, we got to keep it going.